Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. This is the second video of the series. In the previous video, we saw how the introduction to OpenAI API Playground. If you have not seen that video, just go back and watch that video before watching this because we are going to continue from there. In the previous session, if you remember, we wrote something in the playground. We prototyped a social media generator. So we'll convert that into code today. And we'll also look at where is the API docs for OpenAI and what is the Python SDK for OpenAI. And then different types of OpenAI APIs like text, image, text to image, text to speech, text to text. And we'll write the code for them in the session. And then we'll go back to our social media generator and we'll complete that project into the code editor. Okay. So I think we can start the session now. Let's go back to the playground here. If we were at this condition, right? We had something in our hand, prompt, we had something called user here. Now, how can I get the code for it? If you remember, I explained that you just need to click on this code section and you will get the whole code. But this code may not be complete. So what you have to do is you have to erase everything from the playground. You just have to keep the system message and one user message here and then copy the code from here. But still, if you look at this code, this looks quite complex. That's why we need to understand the basics of it before starting that. So let's start with the basics. Let's go back to the OpenAI API basics, okay? So if you look at it here, the first thing that you need to do is you need to install the OpenAI library first, and then I have also installed the .env library, which helps me to read variables from the environment variables, right? So I'll just run it to install the library. And then the next step is I need to read OpenAI API key from my env file. I have set that value in the env file and I will read it from there and I'll set it into an API key variable. Okay. After that, this is how you need to call their API. How to do that? They have a method called client.response.create where you just need to pass the model name and the instruction. This instruction is nothing but the system instruction that we gave earlier, and then the input. So for the most basic API call, you just need these three inputs: system instruction, user prompt, model name. That's it. In our case, we have set this system instruction and this user prompt, and that's it. And this client is nothing. You just need to call the OpenAI class with this API key that you have in your environment variable, and that's it. If you just call it, you can see you will get a response output. Okay, so we have got the output from here. Now, if you want to change the prompt, you can do that by doing this. How can I upload a video to YouTube? That's it. I'll just call it again. So our chat GPT is almost ready. You just need these 4 lines of code. You just need to give it instruction and then a user prompt, and that's it. Okay. This is the most basic one. Now, we also saw in the previous session that while prototyping the application, we saw the option to change some parameters over here. How can we control that? So if you go and look at the parameters, if you look at the options that we have in this create function, if you hover over it, you'll find all the options. But the most easier one, like I have explained it here, you can just use the temperature and you can set that to any value here like this. You can also set max output tokens like this. You can watch my previous video if you don't know what is the meaning of temperature and max output tokens. I have explained it there in detail. I will keep the temperature low here because like I'm creating a helpful technical assistant that helps people to answer how to query, any how to query. I don't want it to be more creative. I want it to be factual. So that's why I have kept the temperature low. And in the previous session, if you remember, when we were building the social media generator, I have kept the temperature to high. Okay. Now, the next thing is what all do we get in the response? Okay. So if you look at the response JSON, it keeps on changing, but the most important section here is where I want you all to look at is the uses section. You can find everything in the uses that you sent 2400 tokens in the input and you got 50 tokens in the output. So the total number of tokens are 2475. Why this is important? Because all your pricing is dependent on this. So you need to track this And so this is one of the most important thing that we are getting in the API response. Okay, now we understood how to call the basic API with a simple input out a simple input, how to get answer from OpenAI, how to set some parameters, how to get all the parameters that it supports. Now let's move to the next important thing. I want to query something on top of an image, right? You can do that inside OpenAI, ChatGPT. So how can I do that using API? See, let's say I have this image here, which looks like this. I want to query on top of it. Can you see any animals in this image? So I just need to pass, the format will change a little bit. The input will be a list where I need to pass a dictionary of these details, where I need to pass a role, user, content, this. I'll explain everything later, but this content is important here. Your query has to be of type input text and your image has to be of type input image. That's it. And when you write this, when you ask this question, ChatGPT will answer that as well. OpenAI API will answer that. No, I do not see any animals in this image because the image actually doesn't have any animals. Okay, so this is how you can use OpenAI API to do all those things. And I've also added the link for all these things here in my docs, which index docs, which you can find in the YouTube description. All those codes are coming from this, right? So from their documentation, if you look at this, I simply used this code that they have explained how to query on top of an image. Then what we are doing is we are using their Python SDK. So Python SDK is nothing but a simple way to call their APIs. Okay. So if you look at it, so this is what we have done. I have just followed their documentation. I have installed their library. This is a simple example of how I can call the library, how I can call the API, okay, and get something. So they have everything else mentioned in the docs. So if you are building an actual project, you need to go through these docs before writing the code. Okay. And you can also look at this docs to keep yourself updated, because this video may get irrelevant after a few months because they have changed something major. It is possible, right? So you have to look at the docs to go through. If this code is not working sometime in future, you have to look at the docs to see what has changed. Now we'll look at the next most important thing, that is text to image API. So OpenAI also provides an option using which you can generate images from text using their API. They have different types of image API like GPT Image 1. They also have DALL-E 2, DALL-E 3, how to use them. So you can just see, this is how you can call their image generate API, client.images.generate. You just need to say the model name and then a prompt, then a size of the image, and that's it. It will give you a image URL, a white car in traffic around mountains. I'll just change it a little bit. Let's see. I'm using their old model DALL-E 2, which is quite old, so I'm not expecting very high quality image, but it will generate something. Yeah, it generated this image after 27 seconds. And let's see what it is. Yeah, there is a bike, there is some traffic. It generated good enough image for an old model. Yeah, so this is how you can generate images also using OpenAI API. If you use their latest model, you will get better output. Don't look at this output and say that, okay, uh, it can generate better images if you use better model. So whatever code we are discussing today in the session, I've already posted all those to this repo, GenAI YouTube course. This is my GitHub account and this is the repo. And you can look at all the code here inside this. Now let's move to creating audio API. How can you generate an audio using their API? So they also provide an audio.speech.create method in their SDK, using which you can just give any text and it will generate an audio for it. So I've used that and I'm writing that audio to output.mp3 file. Let's see how it works. So it has generated the output and now you can see a mp3 file here and we can just play it out.
Welcome to my YouTube channel. And
That's
today
it.
we are
Yeah. So
going
this
to
is
learn
how
about the latest.
we can also generate audio using their API. You can always refer to their docs if you want more details about it. because this is just to introduce you all from what all options they have. They have a lot more options, but these are just the basics. Okay. Now let's move to our app that we prototyped in the previous session. We prototyped a social media generator. See, I'll remove the assistant message and then I can copy the code from here. Okay. And I will go back to my playground. I've already pasted that here, right? You can run it, but before that, you need to change a few things. You need to install OpenAI and .env library. You need to read your environment variable, OpenAI API key. Then, if you copy paste the code that you received, you will get this. This is what we have received. Okay. Now, what we can simply do is we also need to pass the API key here. Okay. This is one step was missing. And then now, if you look at the code, this is the most important section. If you look at this is the system instruction that we gave. You are a creative and strategic assistant. This is the user input. And now, if you have these two steps already done, then what you can simply do is you can just run this also. So this is how we got the same output that we were getting inside the playground. But this is not going to work on production because this input is like quite messy. So I need to break it down into different steps. How can I do that? So I will break down the input format. That is, I'll create a list for it and I'll place the system message because this is going to be constant. So I'll place it into the input format only. Then whatever the user message that user is giving me, I'll put it inside this format, user content input text, and I'll put the message here, right? And then I'll append it into the input format, and then I'll call the response.create method using this input. So this is nothing but I've just formatted the same code that I got from the playground into system and user message. That's it. And now I will get the same output. Okay. Now, let's say what happens inside a playground. If you look at it, let me use the same input. So what happens inside a playground? If you give it an input, you get some output, and then you also say some other input. Let's say, I don't think this is good, right? For Twitter. You want to give another input, right? So how can we handle all these things inside our code? So if you look at this, if you go to the code section, you will find that the first one is the system message, the second one is the user message, and the third one is the assistant message. Again, what I will do is the next one will be a user message. So I will append it like this. Again, I will put another user message inside it. So how will we do the same into the code? If you look at it, the first one was the system message. The second one is user message. I'll append it. Then I'll append the assistant message. How I'll get the assistant message? I just need to set the role as assistant, type as output text, and the text will be the actual text that our assistant generated before this, which is a response.output text. I will just append it there. Okay. Now, again, user will say something, right? Let's say I want to say, this is not good. Generate one for my Twitter. That's it. Now user wants to say this. So how we did that? We just appended the previous assistant message and then again the user message. I'll just append it. That's it. And again pass the whole thing to the same response.create method and see what it will do. It will generate a output considering all these messages. See, it is saying thanks for your feedback. Can you share AI product name, whatever it is, right? So this is how you will build your own chatbot using OpenAI API. You just need to understand the input format, which is the first message that we got from the playground that we set in the playground system message. Then the user's request will go into the user message, and whatever we are getting from the AI will go into the assistant message. And that's it. That's all. If you create a loop of all these, you will be able to build a whole chatbot out of it. I think that was all for today's session. In the next session, we are going to build a much better project. that was all for this session. In the next session, we are going to build a much better project. We are going to build a APIs ad generator, where we will use GenAI to create all the content for their. So I think that was all for this video. In the next video, we are going to build a much better project, which is APIs ad generator, where we have a brand called APIs and we want to generate a whole ad for their brand. How will we do that? We'll generate the whole ad content using GenAI API using code. Then we'll also generate images for their ad using AI. And then we'll also generate audio, like we'll convert the content into audio using GenAI, and we'll merge these three, the image, audio, and the content, to create an actual video. You can create that video using MoviePy or Canva. We'll do that in the next session. So make sure you subscribe the channel and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss any video of this series. And if you have any questions, don't forget to write down in the comments, and make sure you share this video with all your friends who are interested in learning GenAI. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. See you all in the next video. Bye.